Assalamu alaikum, grade 10s. We're going on to VAT and I'm in your classroom. Okay, so if you go on the classwork, we've got our FET recovery document there. Okay, you click on it and you go into accounting. And under accounting, grade 10. And we're going to notes. Okay, now we're doing value added tax. So there's VAT there. It's a new note. Value added tax. Okay, so we're doing value added tax. Okay. So if you're looking at your notes here, you'll see it says value added tax, lesson 123. Okay. What is value added tax, which is VAT? For grade 10 level, we need to know a bit of basics about VAT, right? So value added tax, or VAT, it's abbreviated as VAT, is a tax charge on the supply of goods and services by a vendor, and vendors are registered for VAT, collect VAT from customers on behalf of South African Revenue Service, SARS, which means a vendor means people who sell goods, right? So then when we go to the shop and we're buying something from them, they charge us VAT on behalf of the SARS, on behalf of South African Revenue Services, and then eventually it goes, they have to pay it to SARS, right? So the need and the purpose for VAT. The government is responsible for paying the following services: protection of citizens, social welfare, infrastructure. Taxes must be paid to the government so that they have an income to pay for these services. And taxes include income tax, VAT, customs, and excise duty. So income tax you do later on when you have to pay tax on your salary. VAT is what we're doing now. VAT is charged on goods and services, right? So when we go to buy things at the shop, even if you go to buy any item from the shop and you'll see that you must look at your till slip, they're charging you VAT. So the government eventually gets that VAT back and then they're using it for services, right? Customs and excise duties means when you're bringing things from other countries, you have to pay a tax, or when you're sending things out of the country, you have to pay a tax, right? Who can register as a VAT vendor? Okay. A VAT vendor means there are two types of registration: compulsory registration and voluntary registration. If you have a turnover of more than 1 million rand per annum, which means if your sales figure is for the year 1 million rands, it is compulsory for you to register for VAT with SARS. So that means when people come to your business and then they're buying from your business, all the VAT that you are collecting and you are charging people, you have to register for VAT, and you have to fill in a VAT form, and you have to pay that VAT over to SARS, right? Voluntary registration, you must have a turnover of more than 50,000 rand for the year and less than 1 million rand. So why less than 1 million? Once you are more than 1 million, you have to register. It's compulsory. But if you're not, if your sales for the year is more than 50,000 but less than 1 million, then it's a voluntary registration, means you can register for VAT if you want to, or if not, you don't have to. Okay. If the turnover is less than 50,000 rand per annum, a business may not register for VAT. So if your sales for the year, if you carry on selling for the whole year and at the end of the year you work out, for example, that your sales figure is 20,000 rand, you cannot register for VAT. Okay, it has to be more than 50,000 and less than 1 million for you to have a voluntary registration. So when you register to pay VAT to the government, you are called a VAT vendor. Okay, so then you get the registration number and you have to pay your VAT over. The VAT rate, the standard rate of VAT now in South Africa at the moment, it's 15%. It's now calculated at 15%. This rate can be changed at any time by the Minister of Finance. If you remember when you were a bit younger, we used to pay 14%. Now we pay 15%. So it's left at their discretion. They can change it at any time. So every time we go to the shops and we are buying goods that VAT is charged on, we are paying 15% VAT on there. So if you look at your till slip, you will be able to calculate the 15%. Okay. Now the first type of items that we have are called zero rated items, and we need to know the term zero rated items, where VAT is charged at 0%. Some goods are charged at zero rate. no VAT is charged on them, and this rate can be changed by the Minister of Finance if the need arises. The nature of the zero-rated goods. These goods are zero-rated so that poor people can afford these necessary items. So it's necessary items, right? Not luxury items. Most of these things are necessary for people to live. Brown bread, maize products, rice, lentils, dried beans, legumes, fresh and frozen fruit, cooking oil, eggs, pilchards, paraffin, milk powders, fresh and frozen vegetable, petrol, sale of a business entity, okay, all of these things here. So all of these items here, which you have to make yourself familiar with, are called zero-rated items. So what it means is that VAT is charged on them, but at what rate? We're charging VAT at 0%. And the reason that they have done that, I don't know if they've written it here, the reason that they have made it 0% is so that at any time when the Minister of Finance wants to change it, it can be changed to a certain percentage. It can be made 5% or 10%. But now at the moment, the law is that these items are zero rated. So if you go, for example, to the shop and you buy eggs and you look at your slip, you will see that there is no VAT charged on the slip. Okay, let's move on. Then we go to VAT exempted items, right? VAT exempted items mean by law the following are not subjected to VAT. So these items here, they have no VAT on them. So they are exempted. Remember, those ones which are not luxury are charged at zero rated, right? So there's a difference here that by law there's no VAT on these ones here. Financial services, interest, life insurance, medical schemes, provident fund, and pension funds, which means if you go and you take out a life insurance, or you're paying medical aid, or you get interest charged on your bank account, you do not pay VAT on those services. Export services, childcare services, so if you're doing a babysitting service, you're not allowed to charge VAT. Educational services, like on your school fees, your university fees, they cannot charge you VAT on it. Services provided by associations, not for gain, non-profit organizations, we'll do that a bit later on. Renting non-current assets as a private home, which means it's your own asset and you are renting it out. Okay, you've got a tenant in there, you're not allowed to charge VAT. Donated goods and services, okay. Passenger transport in South Africa by bus, taxi, or train. Salaries and wages. So we're going to do that's our next section. When you are receiving a salary or a wage, or you're paying salaries or wages, you're not allowed to charge VAT on it. Private sales of personal items and hobbies and recreational pursuits. Okay, so all these items are exempted from VAT, right? Which means that there's no VAT. Now, who pays VAT? VAT is classified as an indirect form of taxation, as the final consumer bears the cost of the tax. The suppliers of goods and services in the production process will charge VAT and pay the VAT on the value added over to SARS. But at the end of the process, the final consumer will be charged the total VAT, as VAT is included in the selling price or the service price. Okay, so what this is telling you here is, say for example, you're going to the shop and you are buying an item. You are the person, as the consumer. If I'm going to the shop and I buy, for example, something that's a luxury item, if I buy a chocolate, I'm going to pay VAT on that chocolate. So the VAT is coming out of my pocket, but then the person who's the VAT vendor, who I've bought the chocolate from, they will pay the money over to SARS. Okay, so the person who's actually bearing the cost of the tax is the final consumer, means the person who actually goes to the shop and buys the product. Okay, how is VAT charged? The VAT will be included in the price of the goods charged by a VAT vendor, and therefore the customer will be the one who is paying the VAT. So a nice way of doing this practically is just ask your mom or your dad for a pay slip today. Any slip not a pay slip, a grocery slip that they've got from the shop, wherever they're shopping, and look at the list of items, and you will see on there where you have bread and milk and where VAT will not be charged, and you'll see the other items VAT is charged and how it's charged at 15%. Okay, right. Right, we've got the last page to go through, which is the principles of VAT. VAT may be the fairest system of taxation in South Africa as it applies equally to all persons. No person, irrespective of their earnings, is exempt from paying VAT. So it doesn't mean if you earn less, you're going to go to the shop and you're going to pay less VAT, or if you're rich, you're going to go to the shop and pay less VAT. Everybody pays the same rate across the board. Whoever goes to the shop, you're going to pay 15% VAT. Distribution chain from the raw material to the final product of a wood table. Okay, so this is what I wanted you to look at, right? Here's a chain, right, of raw materials. So look at where we're starting off. We're making a wood table. So we go to the forest and we're going to get the wood from the forest, right? Then the timber mill is getting the wood and then selling it to the factory shop, to the furniture factory shop, right? Then the furniture factory is going to sell it to the people who are wholesaling furniture. They're going to buy it from them. Then the retailer is going to go to the furniture wholesaler and buy it from them. And eventually the last person in the chain is who? Me and you, the customer, who goes to the retailer and we go and buy the furniture. VAT is charged on the value that is added by each business in the chain and paid over to the receiver of revenue. If the business in the chain is registered as a VAT vendor, they can claim the VAT back. The last person in the chain, the consumer, cannot claim the tax back. Okay, so we'll go through that a little bit more. So the person who is the last person here, the consumer, we can't fill in a VAT form and say, I went to the shop and I bought these items and I want to claim my VAT back. No, you have to go to the shop and if you're buying a wood table, you're going to pay VAT on that wood table, right? The retailer is going to buy from the furniture wholesaler that table there. He's going to pay VAT as well when he buys it from the wholesaler. Then when the wholesaler buys from the factory, same thing, he's going to pay VAT to him. And when these guys are buying timber from the timber mill, they are going to pay VAT from them. Okay? So if any one of these people here are registered for VAT, right? So remember from the previous note, they need to have at least 50,000 Rand of turnover, right, if they're voluntary registering. But if they have more than 1 million sales for the year, it's compulsory for any of them to register. So if they've registered for VAT, then they pay the VAT to SARS, right? Okay, so let's look at this example of a tax invoice. So this is how we go to the shop, and we've gone Philharmonic Traders, right? There's your address. And there's the address. It's an invoice, right? So we've purchased keyboard suppliers, right? We've went to purchase from keyboard suppliers. So what did we buy? 4 flutes. Okay, it looks like a music shop. 5 guitars, 2 violins, right? The price of it and the amount. Now look, you're calculating the price, you're adding them up together. Then at the bottom, they say 15% VAT charged. So 15% of that value, they work out the VAT. And then you have a total including your VAT. So this is the amount. If you're going to the music shop, this is the amount you're going to pay, 3450. Who has the VAT portion of it in their hands? Keyboard suppliers. If they registered for VAT, they have to pay this VAT over to receiver of revenue. Can you see how it works? From my hands, I'm going to the shop and then they're collecting the VAT, and then they are responsible to transfer the VAT to SARS. Okay, so that's the end of it. This is just a summary value added tax. Okay, you have VAT vendors who are registered with SARS. Registration can be voluntary or compulsory, and then you need to know how VAT is charged. Standard rate of VAT means 15%, which goods are 0 rated and which goods are VAT exempted. Okay, so I've gone through all the notes for VAT, and then we're going to do a few questions every day.